representing South, move our agenda forward by introducing the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Today's press conference is being hosted by the Congressional Black Caucus in conjunction with the Caribbean Caucus, the Haiti Caucus, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. As you can see, there is unanimity and unity among members with regard to what we have all witnessed in terms of the Haitian migration and the Haitians that are seated on the southern border. Having said that, it is now my honor to introduce the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio.
Thank you so much to everyone that's gathered here, to the press, to all the representatives of the caucuses that Congresswoman Yvette Clarke mentioned. It's not by happenstance that we are here. The nation has witnessed over the last 48 hours some of the most horrific things that we've seen. Some of the most emotional, deplorable, unthinkable, and almost not real for us in 2020. But the real reality is, it was real. Today I had the honor of taking 8 members of the Congressional Black Caucus and leadership directly to the White House. And part of that was to speak to those deplorable photos and ask, one, that all those recognized riding horses, using their reins to chase down Haitians like they were cattle and goats, to be suspended, terminated. We also asked a halt to that procedure. While we respect using horses along the border for safety, for patrolling, we have never witnessed people who look like me to be treated the way those Haitians were. We had a long laundry list. And for the sake of so many people who are speaking, we will make it available to the press. We asked for a full investigation. We had the opportunity to speak with the senior advisor to the president, former Ambassador Susan Rice, the chief of staff to Vice President Harris, and to a whole team of the National Security Office. We filled the room, and let me just say, we were not bashful. We put out a set of demands. We said that there would be follow-up. Had the opportunity to spend over an hour with the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. We also have asked that the conditions be looked in. How can you send someone from Central America, whether it's Brazil or whether it's Chile, that has not been to Haiti in a decade or more and drop them off? I don't need to tell you, we know of the earthquakes, we know of the assassination, we know of the unrest, and that it is a failed country. Not acceptable to us as the Congressional Black Caucus. Let me stop here and just say to you, we are fully engaged. We had a member from our Congressional Black Caucus in the Texas delegation. We had the chair of our foreign affairs. We had the vice chair of our Homeland Security. We had the first vice, the Congressional Black Caucus. I am just so pleased that we were able to go and lay out our guidelines. Thank you, and I'm going to yield back to Congresswoman Clarke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me take this opportunity to ask the co-chair of the House Caribbean Caucus, the Honorable Maxine Waters, to bring her comments at this time. Congresswoman Waters.
Thank you. I want to thank Yvette Clarke, and I want to thank Ms. Beatty for the leadership that they're providing on this issue. I'm pissed. I'm unhappy, and I'm not just unhappy with the cowboys who were running down Haitians and using their reins to whip them. I'm happy with the administration. We are following the Trump policy. He is the one that does not follow the Constitution and would not allow those seeking refuge to be able to petition to get into the country. What the hell are we doing here? What we witnessed takes us back hundreds of years. What we witnessed was worse than what we witnessed in slavery. Cowboys with their reins again whipping black people, Haitians, into the water where they're scrambling and falling down when all they're trying to do is escape from violence in their country. Yes, it is unfortunate that it is the poorest country in this hemisphere. It is unfortunate that they have no stable government right now. It is unfortunate that they've had to live through earthquakes. I've been working with Haitians for 30 years. I've been working through 2 coups d'etats. I went to the Central African Republic and I brought back Aristide after he was exiled into the Central African Republic. They have always been between Canada and France and the United States treated worse than anybody else. And so, yes, we are here and we're organized and we're saying to the president and everybody else, you got to stop this madness. And I want to know in the first place, who's paying these cowboys to do this work? They've got to be gotten rid of. They've gotten to be stopped. It cannot go on. And so I thank all of you for being here today. Write the story. Tell the story about what is going on. And let people know that they're trying to take us back to slavery days and worse than that. And the children who are unfortunate to be in this situation must be allowed into the United States immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, I need the oh. Oh, shit.
Oh, wow, order.
It's okay, we good.
Get your next co-chairs.
I am.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
So we made it through the rain, everyone. And, but the rain is not going to stop us from this press conference today. It's now my honor to bring forward one of the co-chairs of the Haiti Caucus, Congressman Andy Levin.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, all the leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus, and all my colleagues who are here today. To stand united and to say that the treatment of Haitian migrants at our southern border is unacceptable, that Congress won't stand for it, and that we demand accountability and answers and a fundamental change of policy. Since there's so many of us up here who are so outraged, I will be brief. We founded the Haiti Caucus because it's time for a new policy towards Haiti where our country actually sees the overwhelming majority of Haitians who want a Haitian-led solution to the political crisis in Haiti, and we are bound and determined to achieve that. But I have to say, as someone who's been active on justice for Haitian people for 40 years, that Haitian migrants have been treated differently than others for decades. Haitian migrants and Cuban migrants were treated completely differently for many, many years. And now we have 8 or 10, 12,000 Haitians under a bridge, desperate at our southern border. And I challenge any of you to find a picture from another time where American law enforcement officials were riding horses and charging it at migrants and using their reins as whips and so forth, what we saw there. I'm just going to be honest with you all. This would not happen if this was not 8 or 10,000 black people. It is outrageous. We are not going to accept it. And we are here to say to our Friends in the Biden administration, we must find a new course of justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Another co-chair of the Haiti Caucus, who has a very substantial Haitian American population within her constituency in Boston, is Congresswoman Ayanna Presley.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark, for bringing us all here together. As co-chair of the House Haiti Caucus and proud representative of the third largest representation of the Haitian diaspora in the country, we have been organizing for months to bring attention to the plight of the Haitian people and the needs of the Haitian diaspora during this tumultuous time. Proud to stand here in solidarity with the Congressional Black Caucus and other allies. The Tri-Caucus is represented here today as well, as we speak out against the cruel, the inhumane, and the flat-out racist treatment of our Haitian brothers and sisters at the southern border. We cannot and we must not look away in this moment. The nation of Haiti is in the midst of overlapping crises, the COVID-19 pandemic, a devastating earthquake that killed thousands, and political instability from the assassination of the president. It is an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, one that demands a humanitarian response. But instead of leading with compassion and grace, these families have been met with cruelty. ICE has resumed deportation flights to Haiti. Reportedly, babies under the age of 3 have been on those flights. Families fleeing a humanitarian crisis, seeking a better life in the United States, have been rounded up like cattle, whipped, handcuffed, and detained, sent back to a country where many families have nothing left, where the government lacks the ability and resources necessary to safely receive its citizens, where large swaths of the country are without power or clean water. This is abhorrent. We can and we must do better. The Biden administration must halt these deportation flights and allow folks to make a legal asylum claim, which, by the way, is a human right and legal. Last week, Representative Velasquez and I led more than 50 of our House colleagues in calling on DHS to immediately halt these deportations and do everything possible to support those fleeing the violence on the island. We have a moral obligation to lead with compassion, and the images we've seen of Haitians waiting in tent camps to make an asylum claim, which is a legal right, is a reminder of that. Haitian lives are Black lives, and if we truly believe that Black lives matter, then we must reverse course. The Biden administration must immediately and indefinitely halt all deportations of Haitian migrants. It must affirm and guarantee the right to due process for those seeking asylum, and it must use every resource available to support those fleeing this humanitarian crisis on the island. We are the United States of America. We have the capacity to do this right. We simply need the political will to get it done. In the meantime, Congress must do the work of investigating and ensuring accountability of the egregious and white supremacist behavior of Border Patrol agents in Del Rio, Texas. I serve on the Oversight Committee, and today my colleagues and I, we are demanding answers and an urgent briefing from CBP about the conduct of its agents on the border. And we will continue our work in the Haiti Caucus to champion aid for the region and support Haiti's full economic and political recovery, Haitian-led by civil society. So I thank you once again, Congresswoman Clark, for your steadfast leadership, for convening us all here today. And now we will hear from our partner and our leader, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee of Texas.
Thank you so very much, and thank you to Chairwoman Clark. Thank you to Chairwoman Beatty. Thank you to the voices that you have heard, because these are not new voices. These are voices that have been steadfast. Thank you to the Haiti Caucus and all of the co-chairs, and as well my Texas colleagues, Congresswoman Escobar and Congresswoman Garcia. We, as the Congressional Black Caucus, are the conscience and the defenders of Black people in the United States, and black people around the world. We are their strength and barrier. And so let me thank the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus for being able to join her at a meeting at the White House where I think the ultimate decisions and representation of where we are had to be made. I do want to say that they were sensitive and responsive and listening, and we're going to continue to fight. But let me tell you why we have the credentials to be able to fight. And as I do so, let me acknowledge the busloads of migrant Haitians coming into the 18th Congressional District, happily so. People from all over the country are calling the facility to be able to be of help. Why? Because people know the dastardly plight of Haitians. Not that it is not a great heritage, a great country. They fought alongside of us in the Revolutionary War, in case any of you did not know. They have always been our allies. But they're now in a critical collapse. Assassination of their leader, the horrific earthquake, 800,000 displaced, and violence in the streets. Good people that need help. And so we must be at that point of helping. And let me say these points in terms of what we hope that we will see. First of all, the Haitians should be defined as stateless persons. Many of them have not been to Haiti in a decade. They've been in South and Central America. We thank them for that opportunity, but there's a collapse that has caused many of them to flee. In fleeing, one can question whether they can go back to those countries that are not their home countries. One has to determine whether or not you can go back to a country like Haiti that is in a collapse. And so what does this mean? It means that they can be declared stateless and that we can provide the State Department and others to craft a more humane and responsive action for them. In addition, a relic, Title 42, exists. It is a relic of the Trump administration. It was created to be mean-spirited. It was created to give those who are riding on horses the comfort, I can do this. And who are these people? I've never seen this massive numbers of people of dark skins coming across the border in this number. You have to understand these crises meet people in their place. And so the border has been safeguarded by Border Patrol and CBP and treating people in a right way. In this instance, actions by some created the narrative that is hurting these people who are just fighting for justice. Title 43, I asked for a suspension of it. It is discretionary. It is related to the Centers for Disease Control, and it can be monitored to the extent that what my colleagues have just asked for, the ability for due process and asylum petition to go forward. Let us create a safe and legal way for families and those who are elderly and those who are frightened and afraid of violence. Let us create that way that we can handle this. I know America can do it. Don't take the narrative of those who want to demean all of us that came from somewhere else. Don't demean the value of America, which is we take the forlorn, the worn, the oppressed. The Statue of Liberty has never bent her head. She still stands. And so we as a Congressional Black Caucus and all of our allies, we're so grateful for you because this crosses racial lines. We are standing here with a rainbow of people. We will not tolerate it anymore. And we know we can work with this administration because there's a caring heart there. Let's do the right thing and let's begin to move Haitians in a way that stateless people are treated around the world, and let us suspend the moratorium, suspend the deportation by putting a moratorium on Title 42. Congress listens to the Congressional Black Caucus. We are the conscience of the Congress for Black Americans and for those Black people and others around the world.
Thank you so much, Sheila. We have been joined by another co-chair of the Caribbean Caucus. I want to ask Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett to bring her remarks at this time.
Thank you to so many of you who have gathered here, so many who are concerned about the people of Haiti, about the people of the Caribbean. Thank you to co-chairs of the Caribbean Caucus that are here with us, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I'm also grateful to have the Congressional Black Caucus as well as, could turn it up a little bit. Sheila, you were kind of a little short there. As well as members of the Hispanic Caucus and other members of the Democratic Caucus who stand in solidarity with us. The Haitian Caucus members who have been formed to support the people of Haiti. As a member of Congress who represents the Virgin Islands, I'm the only member who represents the English-speaking Caribbean, it sits within the Caribbean. The plight of my Haitian brothers and sisters, not just the ones presently enduring egregious and unfair treatment at the U.S.-Mexico border, but our brothers and sisters in the nation of Haiti. It's deeply troubling to me what's happening. The crisis unfolding before our eyes at the border is woefully symbolic of our nation's consistent and superficial response to the reoccurring calamities in Haiti and the Caribbean in general. This is an inflection point in a time for us to rethink how we have our relationship with the Caribbean. The Caribbean cannot continue to be an afterthought. These were individuals, as my great colleague, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee said, not only fought with us in the American Revolution, but gained their freedom through their own violent overthrow and then had to pay for that freedom. Until the 1940s, they were paying to the tune of what is now over $2 billion to the country of France. We need to ensure that not only the United States, but France continues to be a part of what's happening there. As we watch our fellow human beings seeking a better life, we need to ask ourselves, do they not deserve dignity of listening to their story, understanding their desperation, and working to find sustainable, long-term solutions to their problems that cause tens of thousands of people to leave their country, live in poverty and hostility in South America, and make the dangerous trek to try and come to America. I believe our Haitian neighbors deserve that, and that we owe them that, in the same way that we owe those other individuals that have helped us along the way. America has significant trade agreements and economic support with its neighbors to the north and the south, Canada and Mexico. But when it comes to the Caribbean nations, they are thought of afterwards. I'm grateful that this administration has put almost $5 billion available to the people of Haiti for their rebuilding after the earthquakes, that we were the first there after the earthquakes. We were the first there to create a special envoy after the assassination, but we have got to think much more long term. We cannot just continue to think about when it's a desperate situation. We have got to rebuild that which has been taken away. And I think that America is strong enough to do that. It's a well-researched fact, additionally, that our support for them in vaccinations, support for trade, educational and alternative energy partnerships will go a long way. Infrastructure investment to stave off the influx of cheap China support that they're giving them. The Chinese, as Yvette, others will tell you, Congresswoman Clark and others, are flooding the Caribbean with cheap and egregious usury investments in those countries. And America needs to stand firm to our neighbors to the south. That is our third border. That has been said by other presidents, and we need to make it so that it is safe for them to be home. I'm sure the Haitian people do not want to leave their home. Many of them are college graduates, many of them who have done trades. They just want a better life. They wish they could do it in their own home, but they can't. Many we know have not been home in 10 years. There are some children who have never seen Haiti in their life. We have got to be better. We know that America is better, and the Congressional Black Caucus, the members of the Hispanic Caucus, the Democratic Caucus, and the Caribbean Caucus and the Haitian Caucus are here to insist that it happen. And we are grateful that we have had the ear of this administration, that they've been willing to listen, to get our support, and be involved with the grassroots civil society in Haiti to make it so. At this time, I want to bring to the mic Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who is an officer, the second vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I want to thank you all for being here in this inclement weather we're experiencing right now.
Thank you so much. I cannot be silent over the horrific treatment of my black-skinned Haitian immigrants in Del Rio. Watching the video reminded me it put my stomach in knots of the stories of history, the vivid pictures that show how black people were treated differently, inhumane, and to see horses herding and whipping at black people in America. It's not lost on me that I sit on the House Appropriations Committee, and on that committee, we allocate funds to our border control to implement a plan. May I share? Implement a plan to protect and have humanity and compassion for those who seek asylum in our country. This inhumane actions must stop immediately. I appreciate the administration saying we're going to investigate, but I don't want another picture of human beings being treated like animals just because of the color of their skin. When the children were locked up at the border, all of us who are standing here today, we said stop it, release these children and treat them humanely. The compassion and the values of the United States does not stop just because of the color of the skin. The crying out loud, we're talking about human beings. We're talking about the values of America. We're talking about the compassion that we want to see every day. As a member of the Black Caucus, I will not be silent. As a member of Congress, I will not be silent. As a black woman in America, I will not be silent. This must stop.
Thank you very much.
And now I'm going to bring to the mic Nanette Berrigan, my Congresswoman from California.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus stands firm with our brothers and sisters of the Congressional Black Caucus to make sure we're speaking out and saying this is not right, it's intolerable, and we will not put up with it. Seeing the images, the despicable images of humans treated as cattle and rounded up as cattle is wrong. And we need to hold those accountable, whoever is in the White House. We need to speak up and we need to say this is not right. Just today, the Committee on Homeland Security had a hearing with the Secretary to make sure we expressed our concerns and our outrage over what has happened. But we can't stop there. We need to continue to push the policies that are going to change this from happening. Let's remember that our Haitian brothers and sisters can't go to a port of entry and claim asylum right now because the policies have still not been undone to allow that to happen. And that is legal, and it's allowed under our immigration laws, and it needs to happen again so that people don't feel the need to have to go between ports of entry. But as my colleagues have pointed out, Title 42, something I also spoke to the Secretary about today. We have hundreds of thousands of people crossing the border every single day. Why treat asylum seekers differently? It's a discriminatory practice that's anti-immigrant, and we need to end it. And so today I implored the Secretary to end this practice, to stop hiding behind the wall of public health,